All right, happy Friday. Hopefully, everybody is doing great out there. We're going to do a little bit of a trade guide video. Apologize, we did not get one done on Thursday. We'll try to get a few done on Friday here. I think we've got about 13 or 14 trade guide videos out. We will try our best to get all 30 out, but you can read all about your favorite team on ESPN.com in the Eastern and Western Conference trade guide. Let's get rolling with the Chicago Bulls. We've got the Bulls from a trade meter standpoint at an 8. Certainly a lot of questions for Chicago. Currently fighting for one of the play-in spots. When you look at the Eastern Conference standings, it's either going to be 9 or 10. I've already made up my mind that there is so much separation from the team in 8 compared to where Chicago, Atlanta, and Brooklyn are, that this Bulls team, at best, will be either 9th, 10th, or in the lottery. And there's certainly a lot to play out here. I think it's interesting, and certainly we're going to talk a lot about Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and certainly Alex Caruso. But one of the sections we have on here, I'm just pulling it up, in the trade guide, is the front office trade history. I kind of like to look back and see how teams have been active. And it's pretty interesting when you look at Arturas Karnisovas, their head of basketball operations, hired in 2020, right? Last trade, player-wise, I'm not talking about trading for the rights for Julian Phillips, but the last time Chicago made a trade that involved a player was August of 2021. That was the Lauri Markkanen trade to Cleveland, as far as that sign-in trade. Certainly, they were active in 2021 with Nikola Vucevic and DeMar DeRozan, but we are on basically a 3-year hiatus, almost a 3-year hiatus, since Chicago has made a trade for a live player, not the draft rights. They acquired Julian Phillips last year for 2 future number 2. Last regular season trade was the infamous Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter, 2 first to Orlando for Vucevic and Al-Farouq Aminu. One of those turned into Franz Wagner. One of those turned into Jet Howard, I believe. And so Chicago's in this, kind of in this no man's land, right? We all know about it. Zach LaVine has been rumored since, November, December. After this year, he's got 4 years, $138 million. He's been injured most of this year. He's currently out with a sprained ankle. The market for Zach LaVine is limited, to say the least. Really, the only teams that I could see jumping in here, and we're hearing a little bit of scuttlebutt about Detroit, would be Detroit, or even if Charlotte wanted to dip their toe into the Zach LaVine's, I don't know, I want to call it sweepstakes, but in regards to Zach LaVine. And the one thing that we're continually learning about as this new collective bargaining agreement evolves and the harsher roster restrictions come about, and the ability to build rosters with max players, guys who are earning 30% of the salary cap or 35% of the salary cap, is that there is not an appetite for a third player on a 30% max contract if he is not a all-NBA type player. And Zach LaVine has made all-star game in the past, but how they view him, teams view him, is that for a third max guy, and if you have limited resources around you, there's just not an appetite there for. So I think when you're Chicago, okay, we're going to kind of go into a little bit of a deep dive into the Bulls front office. There's a lot of different things you can go about how you handle LaVine. One, you just basically say, hey, we'll take expirings back for Zach LaVine. We just want to get rid of his contract. We consider him as dead weight. Does Gordon Hayward and Nick Richards make sense, for example? Does Alec Burks and Joe Harris and, basically James Wiseman and salary filler, and maybe we can get a young player, make sense. And then we get that money off our books and we basically have a full reset. Okay, that's one way to go about doing it. The other way about it is that we look at it that Zach LaVine right now has the lowest trade value probably as we've seen during his career here. Do we just wait until the offseason Maybe there's a team out there that's willing to do something. Maybe there's a team that loses in the playoffs. Maybe he comes back for the last 30 games, 35 games, and we kind of restore his trade value. I thought he was good I think there were 7 or 8 games he was back. Certainly assist total was up. Chicago was 5-2 in those games, so I thought there were some moments here. So there are different approaches here. Like as I've talked about, and the more you talk to NBA teams, the group of players that are in that $20 million range, whether it be Bruce Brown or DeJounte Murray, there's about a group of 15 guys there have more trade value right now than Zach LaVine, and it's certainly the injury history is a little bit of a concern, and basically what he's done on the court. But this new collective bargaining agreement, I says, like, you can do 3 max guys if you've got Durant, Booker, and Beal, and even that is a struggle here. Like 3 max guys, the perfect roster is for when you basically have a 40-game season here, and we all know that is certainly a rarity. So that's the situation with LaVine. So different approaches as far as I said, you can kind of flip it for if you want to just get expirings off your books. And is there any team out there that is willing? Would Charlotte do it, considering how much basically they are in a major retool, or Detroit? As far as I've been talking about Detroit since December. As far as, does it make sense as far as just to get back expirings here? They're not going to trade you Cade Cunningham and Asar Thompson and Jaden Ivey and Jalen Durant. It's a pipe dream there. Will they trade you Marcus Sasser? I don't know. We'll see how it plays out here. So that's that's how I look at it from LaVine. DeMar DeRozan is the more intriguing player to me than LaVine, based on he's in the last year of an extension of his contract, year 4. He is could be a free agent this offseason. He's extension eligible for 3 years, 129. It's certainly a big number. How do you handle DeMar DeRozan, who's been your best player, let's face it, this season, who could walk in the offseason for nothing? It is on I'm going to pull up their salaries right now. Just pardon me for 2 minutes. DeRozan is on a salary of $28.6 million. What is the value of DeMar DeRozan? Are you comfortable flipping him for a first-round pick? Do you want to get players back in the deal? He has value out there, but he's also your best player, and you're fighting to hang on for that last playing spot. And the more people you talk to is like, people say, we don't want to be like Detroit. We don't want to be 4-40 here. We don't want to. If we're going to rebuild, it's going to be through the middle here. But the one thing that Chicago cannot do is go into the offseason with DeMar DeRozan still here and him leave for another team, and you had the opportunity to basically flip him for another contract here. So for me, I'm more intrigued as far as what happens with DeMar DeRozan here, who's on a $28.6 million contract. He's extension eligible up until June 30th to sign a 3-year, 129. And then I think you also have to look at who else out there has cap space. Does it make sense to play it out? And if anything, we work out. We go sign and trade route, and maybe we recoup something here. But the Bulls have they're over the cap next year. They have $130 million in salary. That doesn't include the DeRozan contract. It includes the Caruso's partial. So it's not like you're swimming in like $50-60 million in room here. The Lonzo Ball situation here, he's got a player option for next year. We'll see where that injury, where his rehab is. Chicago does have. They're in that window, and it will continue if they ever wanted to file for his salary to be removed from the salary cap. If the NBA deemed it as a career-ending injury, they are allowed to do that here. I think you probably give it one more shot and see where Lonzo Ball is in the offseason. And then maybe you address that maybe in July or August here, or maybe even in September, because you can remove that big number. The one thing to note is that if you trade him, okay, that team acquiring him cannot file for salary relief as far as having that number removed from your book and everything. So it doesn't look as the only thing it's really you could treat it as kind of I guess an expiring contract for next year based on that player option, which he certainly is going to exercise. Alex Caruso, I love when everyone's talking about Alex Caruso. Oh, there's about 30 teams or 29 teams that he would fit with, right? The reason why is he's an all-NBA type defender, and he's on one of the great contracts in the NBA. He's at $9.5 million, and he's at $9.9 next year with a partial guarantee. You're not trading Alex Caruso for a future first in 2028. It makes no sense at all. We hear the Lakers, we hear the Sixers, we hear all these different teams here. And for Chicago to go in the Alex Caruso, just to flip him for a first, you might as well try to flip DeRozan here. Patrick Williams is going to be a restricted free agent here. The other thing with Chicago, too, is where they have to be careful, is they are $1.7 million under the luxury tax. They are 6.4 under the first apron. They are hard capped at the first apron. You have to be careful as far as you're not going into the tax and losing out $11 million distribution here. So any DeRozan trade, you're not taking back a $32 million player or $33 million player. That's not the nature of the business when you're hanging on for dear life for one of these play-in teams here. I do think there's a way to kind of, not hit rock bottom and basically try to retool this roster through the middle, similar to what Indiana has done in the past. Some of those teams that have not completely bottomed out. I hate the word blow up. I think it totally does not make sense here. As I said, they have played better basketball. With LaVine out, not on the court, they played better basketball during that 7-game stretch here. They're out west right now. That trip will probably tell a lot as far as where this team is going here. But the LaVine trade talks are certainly slow. If Zach LaVine was on is on a max contract under the 2017 CBA, it's a matter of, hey, are we willing to kind of incur more of a luxury tax penalty here? But how these roster restrictions are going to be for all these high spending teams, it doesn't make sense for the Lakers or the Warriors or some of these others to go out and, as I said, get that third max guy and him potentially either being sidelined or not impacting winning. I mean, that's the big thing here. For the trade, I would like to see. Let me pull up their trade guide. It's pretty simple. I mean, and I don't think Chicago's front office would do this, but we will say it anyway. LaVine to Charlotte for Gordon Hayward, Nick Richards, and 2 second-round picks. That's basically if you're looking just to dump money, right? If you're just looking to dump his contract here. But then you say, all right, look, we're going to dump his contract here, and then we're going to create, we're going to have $50 million in cap space. Okay, for who? Right? Who are you going to go out and sign in a below average marketplace here? Free trades, draft, free agency. That's the way, we can debate one or two. That's how you build rosters these days. It's not going out and signing a $40 million player in free agency here. So you have to be cautious as far as going out and creating cap space. But that is where we are with the Chicago Bulls. I know it's kind of like we're in that no-man's situation here. The LaVine contract will hang over. The Lonzo Ball contract will hang over. I don't see this roster or this front office bottoming out. But I do think you have to figure out what direction you're going to go with DeMar DeRozan. If you're going to keep him, does it mean he's going to be extended? Are you going to want to flip him? What does that do for the rest of the season here? Your draft equity is, low, I would say. You still owe San Antonio a top 10 protected first in 25. It's protected top 8 in 26 and 27. Chicago can trade a first, but 2 years after the pick to San Antonio is conveyed. So the earliest you can trade a first is in 2027. You can swap in 24, 28, 29, and 30. You have a first from Portland that's top 14 protected through 2028. Here's the other thing, too. You only have 2 second-round picks available to trade, and you don't have the draft rights to any players here. So can you build back up your draft equity here for a team that, as I said, is kind of in this no man's land? They're not a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. They're not a top 8 team in the Eastern Conference. They're, I guess, average enough to kind of hang around for this final playoff, this final play-in spot, basically by default. It's like Brooklyn, Chicago, Atlanta, in a I don't even want to say in a steel cage match for the rights to play Boston in the first round and probably get their teeth kicked in here. But that's it on Chicago. 15 minutes. I know everyone likes to complain. There's no graphics behind Bobby. Why isn't there graphics? And why? Listen, we've come a long way for these videos. We used to do it on my phone. Okay, so that's the goal here. We're doing 15-minute videos, kind of, mom and pop, meat and potatoes, right? Like, we're not throwing out graphics. We're turning it around quick, and that's just the reality of it. Like, we're trying to give you as much information as possible, and we will talk soon. Next video coming up soon.